I used to. Welcome, everyone, to the June 4th Rutherford Board of Education meeting. It's wonderful to see so many faces here tonight. I ask that you all rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Here.
Dr. Awadi?
Here.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mrs. Librera?
Here.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Mr. McLean? You have a quorum.
Mr. McLean, our board president, is unfortunately unable to join us tonight. He's traveling for work. He's actually in Paris. He sends his regrets and actually sent a statement for later in the meeting to read on his behalf. The New Jersey Open Publics Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend a meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald South Bergenite and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment, as limited by Comcast time constraints, on Tuesday evenings, 8 o'clock p.m. on the Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting can be viewed on our website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link, clicking on Public Meetings, and then Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting can make that request in writing to the board secretary. So before we move on tonight, just want to make a note about the change to the agenda for the meeting. We know that many of you are here for the special presentation of Student Recognition Awards, which will be one of the first items on the agenda. We will then hear from Mrs. O'Connell and Mrs. Hohen on 2 special presentations on technology and special services. And then what we're going to do is normally we do a report from the superintendent and then a report of the board president, and then we open the meeting to the public. Tonight, we'd like to swap the order of that and open the meeting to the public, expecting that there are a number of folks here who would like to speak with regard to the facilities plan. So we do that, and then in place of the superintendent's report and the board president's report, we'll have an opportunity as board members to share our thoughts with respect to the ongoing process for facilities planning. So with that, we'll move on with the meeting. The first item on the agenda is the minutes approval. Board members, you have items, or the minutes in your package. Does anybody have any edits or changes to make to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, can we enter those into the record? Okay, then we're ready for our first special presentation, which is the Student Recognition Awards.
I'm going to ask Ms. Librera to go up to the front and hand out certificates to students as we call them up. I know, first of all, I thank all the students and parents and friends of students who are here tonight. I'm sure that there are some that are not. We have 67 students that we've are recognizing, so we might want to hold applause for one thunderous ovation at the end instead of multiple applause throughout. And what we've done, as the board has done every year, is not to recognize every student, because our students represent us very, very well. throughout the year, but to recognize those students who have won or placed high on county, state, or national levels. So the students that have been chosen to be recognized by the board went beyond the local borough, went beyond even the league that they may be in, and went on to county or state or national records. Okay, from Pierpont School, honorable mention in the Bergen County Poster Contest, Shlok Shah. If you're here, come on up and get your certificate. From the high school, she was a state championship in the high jump. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll clap. We'll clap. From the high school, state championship in the high jump, both indoor and outdoor, and county champ, and also has one of the highest jumps in the nation, sophomore Jenna Rogers. The following students won the Bergen County, New Jersey Consumer Bowl. We'll bring up the entire team, the members who are here. This was a major accomplishment to do this against some of the biggest and most experienced, it was kind of new for us, teams in the county. And they were Tony DeSalvo, Sam Ferguson, Dominic Morrow, Virgil Minnick, and Thomas Nowoslawski. Our student rep can help you out with some of these names, maybe. Also from the high school, first place in Northern Bergen County Regional Math League competition was Rian Chowdhury. And second place in the same competition, the regional math competition, was Sarah Chung. We have a whole group of students from our middle school and our high school who have qualified for either county or regional choirs. From Union School, the Bergen County Middle School Choir, we have Arai Chinny, Michelle Mendaka, Isabella Murrow, Amelia Perlmutter, Ava Porter, Veronica Barasco, and Elizabeth Zeidler. From the high school, qualifying for the Bergen County Choir, Gabriela Campos, Kira Chaffee, Sean Cunnin, Sophia Rodriguez, Lydia Shin, John Sulain, now I'm sorry, I just moved into high school. So the high school, Sophia, Lydia, and John are all in the high school Bergen County Choir. And continuing with the high school is Jonathan Yap. And the following students qualified for the North Jersey Region Choir. and some of them also for the Bergen County Choir. So for the North Jersey region from the high school, Jihai Lee, Mary An, Joanne Calvo, Justin Esposito, Russell Gomez Martinez, Jinsu Kim, Sophia Kim, and Stacy Shang. That's an incredible number of students to qualify for the county and the North Jersey regional with so many schools here in the area in our music programs. That's something we should be proud of. From the high school in the FBLA, Future Business Leaders online regional competition, we have several winners. Madison Fami, Emily Fiza, and Virgil Minnick. We also have had a great deal of success with our FCCLA, which essentially is a family, career, and consumer leaders. And from the high school, these are first place in the spring leadership conference, and these folks will be going to a national conference as well. Catherine Carton, Jillian Davis, and Carolyn McCarthy. In the same competition, taking second place in the state, we had Urza Balderbinj, Megan Chow, Grace Killen, Amanda Raposo, and in the same state competition with third place, Andrew Chun, Kyle Sanzo, Kayla Whitford, and gold medal winners in the spring conference were Iman Sheikh, and Carolyn McCarthy. We have students every year we're very proud of, even though it's not strictly a school activity, who earn Eagle Scouts and Boy Scouts or Silver Awards in Girl Scouts. And this year we have several of our young ladies who earned the Girl Scouts Silver Award, which is one of the highest awards, or the highest award you can get. And they are Bridget Boylan, Carolyn Merswa, April Muller, Carrie O'Keefe, and Hartley Peterson. In a scholarship competition that was founded by Hackensack Meridian Medical Group, for posters and campaign logos for body image and eating disorders. We had two county winners designing those, Frank Condachulo and Amelia Lorenz. This year in our PTA Reflections competition, which covers literature and art and film and photography, we had several county and some state winners as well. The county winner in second place, the state in photography, Hasti Patel. County winner and state winner in film production, Sarah Rotundi. And the county winner and state winner in literature for his poem, Tredib Shom. The photograph and the video and the poem are all available online at the high school website. If you'd like to view them or see them, these are all state winners, which is quite an accomplishment. County winners in film production, Carolyn McCarthy. And Emily Muller. County winner in literature was Arnav Kakara. Martina Kim. Emily Muller. And a county winner in photography, Ella Michalski. Another county winner in photography was Manav Shah. And the final county winner in visual arts, Lauren Vieira. And our robotics team from Union School won the state championship in the VEX IQ robotics competition and then went on to the national competition. We have applauded their work in the past. And the four members of the team, Juan Ajitos, Ari Kamat, Andrew Wu, and Jasper Zwemmer. Is there any student who came in late? I may have called your name, and I don't want to leave anybody out if you're here, if you were missed.
Kira Shafi.
Kira Chaffee? Yes. Okay. So, and let me just find what she did because I want to give her recognition. There's a long list, so be patient. What'd you win the award for? Bergen County Choir. Okay, good. Congratulations. Would like to congratulate again the students, the parents, the teachers. To have such a large number representing us on the county, state level, and several of the state winners then go on to national competitions. Some are still to be held. Our robotics team, I think you finished 44th or 45th out of about 700 or more schools in the national competitions. That's something to be proud of. So congratulations to them. Want me to move on to the other presentation? Okay, we have, as you know, throughout the year, the board invites our building principals to come and speak to the board and to the community a little bit about some programs. And as we come close to concluding the academic year, we'll have two presentations tonight for district-wide programs. The first is Ms. Barbara O'Donnell, who is our Director of Technology, who's going to give a little update to the board regarding some new initiatives this year and maybe a quick look ahead to the future.
And for those of you, again, congratulations, who received the awards. You're certainly welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting, but if you would like to take this opportunity to exit, you're more than welcome to do so. No offense, Mrs. O'Donnell.
You can clear house, Sally.
And Ms. O'Donnell has nothing to do with this. She's not clearing the room.
And the rest of you can bring it in if you want a closer knit meeting here.
Okay, Barbara, whenever you're ready.
Last year around this time, I came to talk about the implementation of our one-to-one program. So last year I was here telling you what it was, and we were ready to get started in September. So this year I'm really happy to report on the success of our first year being a one-to-one Chromebook district. And really what a difference a year makes. Last year I was talking about we didn't really know how we were doing this, and we did it. It was really a very successful rollout. We have approximately 2,530 Chromebooks throughout the district. Of those, 1,775 of them travel back and forth from home to school with the students every day. So some of the keys to our success, first of all, we had the necessary infrastructure in place. We took several years to do wireless access studies to make sure that in all our buildings, our wireless was ready to handle the influx of devices. Also, this past summer, we increased the bandwidth throughout the district, and we also installed a new robust internet filter, which allowed the students to have an internet filter in place in school, and then when they bring the device home, they're under that same internet filter that they would be in school. Our goal has always been to put the curriculum first, and that's a credit to the incredible work that our Blended Learning Committee did, really starting in the 2013-2014 school year. And their emphasis was on identifying the best practices for using technology as a tool to enhance instruction and to improve student learning. To us, the device we use is secondary. The most important thing is what goes on in our classroom, and our teachers were really ready for the one-to-one rollout. At the end of last school year, we had teachers fighting for carts with devices, so we knew that they were ready, and they really were. We also have formed partnerships with all of our teachers. The teachers are the key to making this happen. And the technology integration teachers that we have in place at Pierpont, Mrs. Sabato, at Union School, Mrs. Hetzel, at Rutherford High School, Mrs. Richmond and Mrs. Maloney, they are the go-to people in each building, which ensures that the voices of our teachers are heard and the needs of our students are met as quickly as possible. So we're in my office as an IT staff are in constant communication with them, and they're really the first line of defense for the teachers in our buildings. And also, of course, professional development. And I'm really proud to say that most of the time with our professional development, we might send 1 or 2 teachers to a conference or a workshop, and then they come back and they turnkey it to the other staff members. So what impacts did we really see this first year? Well, I like to say that our classroom walls really came tumbling down. Through the use of G Suite and Google Classroom, we were really able to provide a personalized learning experience for our students. That never could happen without these tools in place. The interaction between the teachers and the students was really incredible. We constantly heard stories about teachers and students communicating in real time. So a student no longer has to wait for the next class period to get feedback on an essay or a project that they're doing in school. They get the feedback in real time as the teacher's commenting it on in Google Classroom or in G Suite. So it was really this increase in exchanges with ideas between our teachers and our students. These tools also allowed our teachers to meet the needs of the students to where the students are in their learning. Technology really freed us from the idea that every student needs to be working on the same thing at the same time. The access to these devices allowed our teachers to use various online diagnostic tools to keenly focus on the needs of the individual students. We also saw more project-based assignments. which increased student creativity and collaboration. And no longer did our kids, if they were doing a group project, have to get together at one house to talk about it. They talked about it online through the use of these tools. And park testing. Literally, in previous years, we would take devices away from one school and deliver those devices to another school so that school could park test. So for example, at the high school, I used to take devices away from Lincoln and Washington, drive those devices up to the high school. So in order to do online testing, I had to take devices out of the hands of kids. This year, the kids were told to bring their Chromebooks. They did, and we completed the park testing. So one-to-one in year one has really been a success. We're really proud of what we have accomplished. I often get asked the question, though, is it only Chrome? How do you do everything just with Chrome? Well, we don't. Okay, the Chromebook is what we use day in and day out, but then we still have Mac labs throughout the district, particularly in art and design, things like that. And we also have Windows-based machines, particularly for our robotics teams. A lot of the STEM is done through a Windows-based machine. So it's not only Chrome. Chrome is our everyday, what we use every day, but we still maintain those other devices as well. So where do we go from here? Devices will be collected from kids who are in grade 12, because of course they're graduating. Grade 8, because they're moving on to the high school, well, they'll get a different device. And grade 6, because they're moving on to Union School. But this summer, the devices will remain with the kids over the summer for those kids in grades 7, 9, 10, and 11. And over the next, probably within the next week, I'll be distributing a survey to the kids and the teachers, because we really want more feedback and more reflection so that over this summer, we can really plan for our year two, and maybe some changes, but we're looking for their feedback. And here are just some pictures of our kids in action. Really, you can go into any room and see kids working on Chromebooks. What also happens is when teachers are absent, learning just continues because teachers are posting in Google Classroom, the kids come in, they bring out the Chromebooks, and the teachers, even though they're absent, are still communicating with the kids. And just some thank yous to the parents and students in our PTA who really supported this and endorsed it wholeheartedly. And our PTA also helped us with the Chromebook cases last year, to the Board of Education and the Rutherford Education Foundation, who has always supported technology in this district. I'm finishing my 27th year, and I taught in the first computer lab in the high school. And technology has always been in the forefront for this district. And financially, both the Board of Education and the Rutherford Education Foundation have been very, very supportive of us. To the administrators and supervisors who encourage our teachers to take chances, so our teachers aren't afraid to try new things. To those technology integration teachers who are our first line of defense, and to all our teachers who have really made this work.
Also, while Mr. O'Donnell was thanking a lot of people, I need to thank her and her staff. We and all the people she mentioned. It has been a tremendous boost in so many ways. I mean, even when substitute teachers are needed because teacher is absent, the student can stay with real-time lessons through Google Classroom and not those sub-lessons that were left for a rainy day. So they stay on track. The work and the planning that went on with the committees. We had two different committees, and with the administrators and with the supervisors, with the teachers over the years, and then with the board and REF. It was really a tremendous effort. And remember, our goal was to get there, not even this year, but at the end of next year. It was a 5-year goal, and we got there in 3. Without really making many sacrifices anywhere else to get to the point where we could get this done. So it's been a very successful program. I don't know if before we move on, if anybody.
Just one question, either one of you. Did the kids take good care of them? I mean, they don't need to be fixed, or I thought last year they were going to be collected and you were going to look them over, but.
Well, we are going to look them over anyway. So even if you're keeping them over the summer, there's a checkout process, kind of just like with a textbook, just to make sure they are. But we were looking at, like in the beginning, we were like, oh, there's so many need to be repaired. We only touched about 10% of them. So for the first year, because I always say, everybody always warned me, your first year is the worst, but there was only 10% of them. And some of them were things that my staff could handle. Some of them did have to go out for repair. Some of it was warranty work. Some of it wasn't. But we only touched about 10% of them, which isn't bad.
And like most things, we don't do them blindly. Barbara reached out to other districts that have been doing the one-to-one longer to see how they handled the end of the year, what worked, what didn't work. Was the collection process of 1,700 computers worth what it takes to install? Did it? And most districts found success with letting students keep them, and hopefully the students will be encouraged to do some of their summer projects that they get for various subjects through the use of the computer. I would say, in terms of repair and things happening to machines, we do offer the parents insurance. It's very inexpensive, and it covers most accidental things, even some things that aren't so accidental. So we had a pretty good turnout rate this year. Parents take it, and we're hoping for everybody. It's a good investment for the machine. And as I mentioned last year, as we, unless there's other questions, we'll move on. We think about computers and so much money, but the Chromebooks are relatively inexpensive, $225, $50. We give out AP textbooks that are worth that much money, music equipment, athletic equipment that's worth that much or more, and students are responsible and parents are responsible if they get damaged or lost. So really the loss factor isn't any greater, and yet the benefits that we get are so much greater. So congratulations to all, and thank the board and the REF and the community and the faculty, staff, and administrators and the supervisors for getting this done 2 years ahead of schedule, which was a nice thing to get done.
Yeah, we'd certainly like, on behalf of the board, to thank you, Mrs. O'Donnell, and to thank the entire team and Mr. Hurley and the full administrative and all of the school teams in rolling this forward in such an aggressive and effective way. And I certainly commend you on completing the rollout early. And I know I speak for the rest of the board when I say that we're very excited to see where it goes from here. In so many ways, this is really a foundation that we've built with respect to getting the technology out and getting folks used to using it. And now I think we'll see a very steep incline just in the ways that people use it and all the different opportunities it will bring. So thank you very much.
Our next presenter is the Supervisor of Student Services, but she's here tonight to speak primarily about our special education programs and some of the initiatives that have happened in the past year. So Michelle Perez-Hohen.
Thank you. I was just about to introduce myself, so thank you.
Check.
And thank you, Ms. O'Donnell, for also technology in my office. It's made a huge difference to a lot of the things that we do as a special ed department and makes it seamless. And thank you and good evening, and allowing me to take a little bit of an opportunity to talk about our special services department. Our department is focused on nurturing all of our students both in and out of district and to help them develop as individuals in and around our community. And so they can maximize their potential as much as possible and access programs that are appropriate for them and also get the support services they need. This is also helped by our team's collaboration, both our related service providers and our child study team, with collaborating with local, state, community, mental health providers, private mental health providers, and other service providers to develop better programs for our students with disabilities. Starting with our youngest students, the programs that we started last year, which is our preschool ABA program in Washington School, this is really developed into a program that we have a waiting list on. So that to us is just showing us how the community has embraced this program to move on to the next level, which is in Lincoln School, which is our MD K1 MD program. So, and this allows our students to start out in district and continue this journey throughout. At the preschool level, also we have our integrated programs, which are both half day in the morning and afternoon. And this has allowed just the exposure of academics to build a proper foundation for these students so they can continue on for the next step, which is kindergarten. And also the benefit of having the behaviorists. We started last year with the behaviorists. This year has continued, and it's been such a push in the right direction, because not only does the behaviorist address the individual behavior needs of the students, but also classroom strategies that work in, especially she's a daily presence in the preschool and in kindergarten classrooms all the time. We offer a continuum of services, not just, these types of services that I was talking about, but just from our self-contained environment all the way to a co-teaching. We have our MD class that is moving on from Union School to the high school next year, so we're very excited about that transition that they're going to be doing. Supporting these students involves a strong child study team commitment. They collaborate daily with teachers, administrators, and supervisors. Again, the addition of the behaviorist has provided us someone that's going to have expert eyes looking at our students, our general ed students even for that matter, to look at strategies that teachers can be using and put it out in a very user-friendly way. Talking about a little bit more about mental health initiatives, our student assistance counselors, which I do oversee as well, they meet with their groups, with their individual students to help maintain them in the classrooms. There have been many successes with proactive interventions that have limited the number of students that require intensive interventions who could potentially be sent out for another setting, which is like a therapeutic environment. And a few students that do require intensive services can be serviced and referred through our Pathways to Success program, and we've had a few in there, and they've maintained their presence in the classroom with the help of this program. Some of the other things that the SACs do is they do parent workshops, they participate with Rachel's Challenge. This summer, they will be running a program for students that exhibit a little bit more anxiety than usual and the more school-phobic students. So that's open to our students in the elementary level. Talking about other interventions that are available to all of our students is response to intervention. Each of the school buildings have developed a strong RTI process, which is why it's commonly known, by screening their student population to ensure that a focused effort is done for everyone. And then as the students move up from a general classroom intervention, which we call Tier 1, they also, if success is not being met, they eventually, if need be, they get an action plan available in the Tier 3 level. And these interventions are done by teachers and teams that meet to ensure the success of these students. And I have to tell you that there have been limited referrals because of this to the child study team, because of all the interventions that are taking place. And this year, I'm proud to say that the Bulldog Academy, this is their first year. I'm very excited by that. I'm so proud of the whole process that has gotten us. Not that I don't highlight the other programs, but to me, this is near and dear to my heart. There's so much to say about the program. The teacher to the job coaches, they've been such a positive role model for these 5 students that I do have in the program right now. They provided real work experiences and life skills both in and out of our center, which is a fabulous center. If you get a chance to go look at it, I please welcome. And next year, we're very excited that we will be growing to 7 students. And we are receiving district now. So 2 other districts have, reached out to my department to allow some of their students to come to our program, not just the one that we had this year, but a couple of other districts. And that, is very exciting for us as a district to be a receiving district at this end. Lastly, I just want to mention that the growth of our programs and much needed services for our students can only happen with the facilities and space that can help our students, especially in the special ed department. In another couple of years, in the 2019-20 school year, our current pre-K ABA students and our MDK1 students will be at the elementary age. And I'm afraid when they get to Pierpont, there won't be space for them, and I'll have to put them in Union School, which isn't age appropriate. So I'm hoping that the facilities plan will help service this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The behaviorist also, Ms. Benarkle, in addition to working with the students, has been will be doing teacher workshops, does workshops for our teacher assistants, and also parent workshops. So it's really a very valuable, and that's across the spectrum. It's not just special ed students, it's general ed students as well, to put some behavior strategies in place. So that's been a plus. And the students who have remained in district and the students who have thrived in the years they've been here, and hopefully have a very positive journey through our schools. Again, these programs are in first or second year of development and really have been very successful and are growing rapidly, in the sense progressing at the pace they should, getting stronger every year. So we thank Ms. Owen and her staff, and again the board and the community for taking the leap of faith with the Bulldog Academy, taking the leap of faith with the ABA program and the preschool program that is really working well for the students that are here.
Do any board members have any questions or comments? Well, on behalf of the board, we certainly thank you for all of your efforts. The growth in special education opportunities in the district is really a source of pride for all of us. We're so pleased to see all of the progress and the growth in educational opportunities for all learners in Rutherford. So thank you very much.
Tonight we have one more special recognition. We have our student rep, or elected by the student council, Daniel Sullivan, is at his last meeting as a student rep. Danny has been the student rep for 2 years, elected their one-year terms. He's been elected twice. We like to refer to him as the last of the Kennedys, because his sister Kate was a student council rep for 2 years, his brother Sean was for 2 years, and now Danny for 2. So next year will be the first year we don't have a Sullivan sitting at the end of the table for a long time.
Well, you're welcome to run.
I do want to make one comment before Ms. Librera speaks. A lot of things have been said about Daniel, and most of them good, over the last over the last 2 years. But I'm sure he's going to talk about this, but I've been known to steal people's reports before. Last Friday was the senior breakfast, and at the senior breakfast, we had $115,000 worth of scholarships given out to our seniors from community groups and regional groups, and it really is a wonderful display of the Rutherford community and the support they give to our schools and our students. But the last two awards are always the two that have the highest prestige attached to them because they are voted on by the faculty. The last three awards. And I don't even know if Danny knows this or not, but the awards are given out like the Academy Awards or something, or Miss America, or like Miss America, third place, second place, and the last award goes to the student who gets the most votes for all-around character, academic leadership from the faculty's perception of the students, and Mr. Sullivan was that recipient this year. So congratulations on a successful tenure here as a rep, on your years through the schools and as a student and an athlete, and the community service work that you volunteer for. I mean, it could go on and on and on with the things that he does. So congratulations. And Ms. LeBron?
So we are certainly very happy to see you move on to your next chapter, but sad to see you go because you've been a great addition to this board. I think one of the bright spots of our meetings always is your report and hearing about all the wonderful things that are happening with the student body. It's always been very positive, and you've done a great job of highlighting things from all different aspects of activities in the schools, whether it's sports or the performing arts, things that are happening academically or things that are happening socially. It's really been a very well-rounded report, and so much of what we strive to do in this school district, which is really to support the full student. So thank you very much. We certainly wish you all the best. And thank you for your significant contribution and sacrifice, because we know that a junior and a senior in high school has a few demands on their time, and coming to these meetings with regularity and really being focused on sharing all of the things that are happening with the school and the student body has really been quite admirable. So thank you very much, Danny.
And the board has a little gift for you. Well, a small token of their appreciation.
How old are your sisters?
That was my first.
Yeah, I know. But how?
I guess that's where I get my report. Yeah. So sorry, Mr. Early, you were wrong. My sister's coming up. She's gonna be a freshman next year.
But not yet. Not yet.
No, there is gonna be a new board representative, Maggie Lasky, coming next year. So I can assure you that the board's in good hands with her. But my sister will.
2 years out.
Yeah.
The dynasty continues.
Sullivan in 2020. The signs are already posted. Right?
So yeah, 2 years really does fly by so fast, and I sincerely thank you all for welcoming me to this board with such opening arms. And being on the board for 2 years, I got to see new faces come in and faces leave. So it was a pleasure working with all of you and all my past colleagues, and thank you again for everything. So as we wrap up the year, athletics come to an end too, and the baseball team lost in the second round of states against Madison, but they were a very close game and almost moved on. As for track, 2 athletes are advancing to the state meet of champions, which is this Saturday. It's very rare that you see from Rutherford, a small school like this, that 2 athletes would move on. We usually have 1 or in some cases 0. We have Jenna Rogers and Anthony DeMalo competing in high jump, and Anthony DeMalo will also be competing in long jump. So we wish them the best of luck. Last Friday was the senior breakfast, as mentioned, as for the prom, and I was talking to Mrs. Jones before, but it was both events literally went perfect, and that's all thanks to our class advisors, Dr. Lacey and Mr. Stracco, and of course the PTA members who really put that together. And now we look forward to graduation on the 21st, and where all the seniors are saying goodbye. But before that, we have our baccalaureate service, which is Tuesday night. It's going to be a clergy service for the class of 2018. And then we have on Wednesday the varsity dinner, which is going to be recognizing students for their athletic achievements. And as mentioned before, I want to touch upon our 3 RHS students who have been selected winners of the NJ PTA Reflections Contest of Art and Literature, and that was through poetry, photography, and film. And being here for 4 years, knowing the classes we have here, and looking at the different forms of art created, it's awesome to see that some of our students placed top 3 in the state. So thank you. I thank you all again, and I appreciate the time that you've given me here. And that's not the end of a legacy yet. So hopefully. Thank you again.
Great. I don't know that I can excuse you to go do your homework now. Excellent. Thanks for staying.
All my tests are done.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So, like I said before, normally we would do the superintendent's report and the board president's report, but I think since there are folks here who are here to give comments, what we'd like to do is change up the format a bit, open the meeting to the public. Then we'll ask board members to share their perspectives as to as to their thoughts with respect to the facilities plan. So just to talk a little bit about the process that we're going through as a board right now. What We certainly are very appreciative of all of the community input that we have been receiving. Some of it has been in these meetings. Some of it has been through emails, phone calls, social media posts. Some of it has been just, on the sidelines of our kids' baseball games and lacrosse games and soccer games and what have you. Lots of opportunities, lots of discussion happening in the town, and we're very thankful for everybody's level of engagement and passion and support for the ongoing dialogue. And I would say support for the ongoing respectful dialogue, which it's been. So we're certainly very, very thankful and appreciative of that. What we'd like to do tonight is open the meeting up to public comment, and then have an opportunity as board members to share what we're thinking and where we are in our thought process with respect to the plan. We're not asking board members to say whether they're for or against something specific, because none of the specific proposal hasn't been moved to the board yet. What we'll do following the discussion tonight is we will reconvene our strategic planning committee, which is a subcommittee of this board, to again review the totality of all of the information that we have, and respond to any open questions that might be out there on the table, whether they're from board members or from the public that have been raised, and prepare a final recommendation proposal to come to the board. Should the board approve that proposal, the proposal will then move to a referendum vote to the full community this fall. So that is the thinking at this point. So with that, I would like to open the meeting to the public on any matter. Yes. Oh, and should we? Yeah. Can I just get a show of hands as to how many people would be interested in speaking tonight? It'll help me figure out what sort of a time we could put on each comment. Okay, so we'll put a 3-minute timer on for each comment. Ask that folks really try to observe that. I'll give you a high sign when you're close. Thanks.
Hi, Leslie Azia, 194 West Passaic Avenue, and that's Ms. Azia. Point of correction, I have the April 30th minutes in front of me. First paragraph reads, blah, 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 that the meeting was held on Monday evening, March 12th, 2018. Needs to be corrected. You're not paying attention. If you look at the header, it also says regular minutes of March 12th, so another correction. And then I, scroll down to page 13, the one sentence where it says, talked about me, Mrs., and again it's Ms. Leslie Azia told the board that she swims every day and asked them not to fill the pool with dirt. Well, I spoke for 3 minutes talking about the range of people that use the pool, from all the babies, the seniors, the mayor's healthy program, the swim team. There are hundreds of people that have used the pool. So to have it boil down, I just kind of feel that was a really myopic view of my sentiments, very short-sighted in terms of representing the full range of people that use the pool. And when you consider that the population of Rutherford has like nearly 19,000 people, and the WISE membership represents 1/4 of that, of Rutherford residents who potentially could be using the pool, that again is short-cutting the potential of this community using this facility. I also want to point out a couple of other errors that I noticed. As I was reading Mr. Hurley's letter, with all due respect, Mr. Hurley, you talked about in your letter on the website about how some people want the initiative defeated so that the pool used by the YMCA at the high school is maintained. And then you said, it is used exclusively by the YMCA with one exception, and you talk about the swim team. Well, you've omitted that, yes, there's the mayor's swim, there's been the 7th grade swim, there's a Boy Scouts program where the Boy Scouts have used the pool, there's the Penguins program where there are disadvantaged members of the community that have used the pool. And there's been some disparaging comments about the YMCA that stepped up in 1992 as a certified pool operator to run the pool when Ms. O'Keefe could not find a CPO, and after the board unsuccessfully was trying to manage the pool itself. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw the full picture. And then when I read in the letter about how the science labs haven't been rehabbed since 1976, That's 40 years. Isn't that kind of irresponsible that there hasn't been a rehab? And I don't know why we need such a major initiative to improve the science labs upstairs. Okay. And as I recall, all of the prior referendums that this town has seen, I remember that, the borough has seen a history of expansion and contraction. There was talk at one time of closing Sylvan, and then the population spurred again, So I want you to bear that in mind, that when you're talking about closing the pool, that's also short-sighted. Okay, and then and there was also a comment about here that how the pool is not used for the educational curriculum. Well, the pool was intended as a community pool. It is used by the community. I feel it is not yours to destroy. It is part of just because it's on this land, it belongs to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address for us.
Sure. Nancy Zwemmer, 331 Montrose Avenue. I actually had no intention of talking tonight. And I have a little different perspective. As some of you know, I graduated from Rutherford. I swam. I was on the first swim team this school ever had. I lifeguarded. I coached. I taught a number of your children probably. I was recruited to swim for college. I swam Division I. If anybody right now probably has a passion and a heart for that pool, it's me. I would love to see it saved. Heck, I would love to see a hole cut in that field out there that could be covered when sports were going on. But I'm not for it. I'm not for saving that pool if it's at the expense of our kids' education. The different perspective I have, and forgive me, Wendy, for saying this, and for Jasper and my family. I really didn't want to be out here publicly about this, but that robotics team that you saw here tonight being honored, and they did a fantastic job. Every one of those kids is going out of district. They're going to Bergen County Technical Schools. My kid is one of them. I have a daughter who is in Bergen Academies right now. She's a rising senior. I can tell you she's in the Medical Science Academy, and I ask each of you, if you have not been to Bergen County Technical Schools to see what they deliver in science labs, go look. My daughter knew she wanted medical. What she's touching and what she is doing in research, in competitions, in learning. She's got a tremendous anatomy exam coming up tomorrow. We cannot compete. I am damn proud of what this school district does. We do a phenomenal job. You just saw it with the awards that we do. But we are losing ground in the STEM and, STEAM, call it now, whatever. And I'm very torn because I would love to keep that pool. It's a part of me. I still swim. I still belong to 2 pools now and swim. But we need to get up to speed on science. We just do. We need those labs and of course the overcrowding, but the science is the biggie for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Take it up since I'm a little taller. My name's Chris Conti, 77 Daniel Ave. I want to speak tonight not so much to speak to the board, but to speak to my fellow parents and members of the community. We all know that this referendum is a big deal. If it's passed, it's going to have a major impact for our kids and our community. Because of that, I personally have been impressed by the due diligence of the board, and even more importantly, the dialogue that has occurred within our town about the referendum. It certainly has made me think more critically about it and the various points of view around it. However, like anything big, complex, and involves money, we all get very opinionated. Because of that, I don't envy the Board of Ed's job at all. We elected them to represent us, which means they must try and develop a referendum that addresses all the critical needs of our school, as well as our needs and wants as parents and tax-paying citizens. Whatever the board decides to put up for a referendum, it's a foregone conclusion that not everyone's going to be happy. So whether you're a pool person or a field person, a science lab person or a cafeteria person, whether you're pro-kitchen or anti-kitchen, whether you want to spend more money or you want to spend less, whatever your thing is, I hope when it comes time to vote that we can all set aside our differences and support the referendum. There is no right answer here. There is no wrong answer. There's just a different point of view. And at the end of the day, this referendum is not about a single issue, but about improving all our schools for our kids. The last thing I wanted to say is that there are people here who I consider friends, but with whom I disagree with about various points of the referendum. I tell my own kids all the time that it's okay to disagree with someone and still be friends. But with social media being the echo chamber that it is, I hope and pray that there's no ill will between anyone here, because when we get down to it, we're all looking to try to look out for our kids and our community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Too short. Tracy Lee, 270 Santiago Avenue. Good evening, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, board members, and the Rutherford community. So last month I spoke about visiting Union School's Z-Space Lab. It was everything my school district thought it would be, an advanced platform that gives students a different perspective through augmented and virtual reality using 3D glasses and hands-on learning. We saw firsthand students engaged in learning through a student-centered environment. Union School's media specialist, Sherry Horenko, did a phenomenal job leading a dual lesson on using C-Spaces as well as Google Expeditions on iPads to take a deeper look into Buckingham Palace with her architecture lesson. We also enjoyed speaking to Mr. Schweitzer about learning all about the middle school's elective choices and block scheduling. But what my district also noticed was the lack of space that these students had. The Z-Space devices were in the middle of the media center, surrounded by library stacks. Not a true lab where my district intends to put the C-Space devices that we will purchase. As a teacher coordinator of educational technology for a school district, I know that computer jobs are in high demand. According to code.org, New Jersey currently has over 25,000 open computing jobs, which is 4.7 times the average demand in New Jersey. And this is not taking into account available jobs in neighboring New York City. New Jersey only had a little over 1,000 computer science graduates in 2015, and only 15% were female. Recently passed, New Jersey will require all high schools to offer a course in computer science by the 18-19 school year. And computer science classes will be able to count as mathematics credits to graduate. So Rutherford does offer these courses to our students, but where will they continue to take place? In a library that barely fits a full class? In substandard labs at the high school? If you talk to any teacher in this district, they will say that they need more space with their students. STEM and STEAM is all about creativity, making things with maker spaces and creating project-based lessons. This is an extremely difficult task to accomplish with a lack of space. And if you say, well, my child won't be taking a computer science job when they grow up, the reality is computing skills are used all around us and virtually in every field. It's a foundational knowledge that every student needs. We need to improve access to all of our students, including groups who have been traditionally misunderrepresented. Rutherford School District is trying to do this. They've added computer science to the curriculum. They're adding innovative devices like Z-Spaces to their schools. But they need the space and updates to continue educating our children in computer science, and this referendum will do just that. Please remember that this referendum is not just about the high school. It will affect every single school building in our district. I have a daughter coming into kindergarten next year, along with almost 200 kindergartners. All of our children and future generations will benefit from this referendum.
Thank you.
Frank Wilson, 171 Montrose Ave. With due respect to everybody that's here, this referendum is more than a poll. It has to do with fixing gymnasium sizes. It has to do with possible science labs. It has to do with making this a eat-in cafeteria, which I still can't see why we have to have an eat-in cafeteria in Kill Park Avenue, all because we think our children are going to be unsafe. It's more than what is being said right now. And which disturbs me also is, board members, have you seen your demographic study report? Have all of you seen this? This is what you're basing your students on. Have you seen this? It's on a website. Mr. Kelly gave it to me. This is where your people are. This is where Mr. Hurley said it's 120 students. But what's interesting, when you look at this, in the next 5 years, the high school is only going to increase 21 students, 4.2 a year. Union School is actually going down 9. So the two major schools only have an increase of 12. The three little schools, Pierpont, Lincoln, and Washington, reflect the change, not the big ones. So if you don't have a problem now, your chances are you're going to have a problem based on these numbers. And again, Mr. Hurley, you're saying as the student population continues to grow, class sizes are becoming larger. Well, your own data shows that one school is going down 9, this one's only going up 21. If you all haven't seen it, this is where the numbers come from. And which leads me into, Mr. Kelly, on this year's budget, you have the students' increase of 60. 1 year, 60. But based on this, it's only going up 120 in 5 years. So am I thinking that the next 4 years after this, I'm getting a 15 student increase for all the schools? These are your numbers. Right here, went up 60 over last year, and then this one shows 120. So again, granted, we all want something, but in order to pass a $53 million referendum, plus interest, if there's any there, don't you think that your numbers need to reflect what we're spilling, what we're saying about, well, we need this because of this, we need this because of this, we need this because of this? If you haven't seen it, I'll sit in the back of the room and I'll show it to you. This is all data coming out of your offices. Anybody like to address these numbers, that where I got them, or if they're fictitious, I'll gladly respond to it. But that 120 that's going up does not reflect here and down there. It's the three little schools. So we're going to spend all this money for 21 students for 5 years and -9 in that school. Put the money towards the three little ones. That's where your impact's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, everybody. Adam Zor, 94 Vreeland Avenue. I'd like to begin by saying the pool people got it all wrong. Their singular focus on saving the pool lost sight of the fact that the $53 million referendum, that's a discussion here, has little to do with improving the educational outcomes of their children. To be fair, their concerns are spot on as far as the pool goes. And it was underscored in a recent interview on the Jersey Shore, where a water safety expert revealed that a 6-year-old child can actually drown within 18 seconds without exhibiting any signs of distress, which I think you all need to take in mind. Spending $1.2 million to return swimming programs to all district students seems to be a small price to pay. The board decision to eliminate the life-saving skills from its touted health and wellness program defies comprehension. As for the proposed referendum, the stakeholder wish list that mushroomed from 28 million to 53 million within several months' time relies on the same student growth projections and assumptions that were unrealized in the last referendum rollout. It ignores census data that shows declines in our general population, in the childbearing age population, and in the under age 5 population. Those also include spending $18.5 million to build new gyms, demolishing existing gyms, demolishing classrooms included in the building in the last referendum to make room for a playground, and then building replacement classrooms on the other side of the same school. It also includes spending $13.6 million on buildings, maintenance, repairs, and upgrades, and spending $4.8 million on a controversial plan to replace a 290-seat cafeteria with a 400-seat cafeteria that is actually going to be too small to accommodate the 500 high school students set to leave the building at lunchtime. This plan makes even less sense when scheduling 2 lunch periods rather than one could actually solve the capacity issue at zero cost to the taxpayers. Spending $2.5 million more to replace the grass on the backfield at the high school and replace it with turf that will have to be replaced on a regular basis is equally wasteful and absurd. Only $11 million of the $53 million referendum actually appears to increase net instructional space, and that includes $800,000 to build 2 so-called easy add-on classrooms at Lincoln School. That $800,000 is an expense greater than the market value of the homes that surround the school, and it's nearly twice what the board has reported as the average assessed value of homes in the district. For all its stated concern about student security, the referendum doesn't allocate a single dime for student safety on its fields, on its playgrounds, or in the outdoor classrooms in Lincoln Woods. The proposed referendum, just like the blue ribbon sign that's posted in recognition of the C grade achieved by the high school on a state report card in the year 2000, needs to be tossed aside and replaced with a nimble, forward-looking plan, incorporating open and flexible learning spaces suited to the rapidly growing and evolving general, virtual, remote, and STEAM learning programs. And I was happy to hear that, and I was encouraged to see that some of that's all beginning to be addressed. We all have to remember that education is all about lifetime learning and not institutional bricks and mortar. I only have one question for the board tonight, and that's the date when we'll finally have paid off the bonds that are covering the $30.6 million referendum that was passed in 2002. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Mike Schmelly. I'm 15 Myrtle Street. You've heard from me a few times in the past. I think it's been 5 or 6 months. I really appreciate you listening to all of us. Like was said before, it's we can all have difference of opinions. Just the one last thing I want to make about our fight here, and it wasn't a fight. It's about all these are positive impacts. We want better classrooms. We want STEAM. I'm a scientist. We need these improvements for the school. We all agree on that. I think you've heard that almost 99% of all speakers here have said we need these improvements. There's one thing in the referendum that takes away something, and that's the destruction of the pool. If you want the support of the town, I mean, there's so many community members that have responded by email. I would, all due respect, Ms. Libera, I would discount social media. I think it's really not the greatest forum for, people pile on and only certain voices get much more recognition than others. Please pay attention to all the emails you've received. Where I want to ask you a question, what the best way to, we've compiled our list of signatures, how we should get that to you. We're almost up to 500 signatures that are all Rutherford residents that were signed on the website, or we've gone out and actually gotten signatures. If you go back, and I don't have the time for this, maybe I could get one of my kids to do it, go through all the YouTubes and actually count the people that have spoken here. I think you'll see there's been overwhelming support for this pool. So, one of my buddies that I swim with, he's done the English channel, he's done the Catalina channel, and one thing that resonates with me, he's my hero. This guy's Dave Barra. He said, nothing great is easy, and this is a great thing. This is a great referendum, but I don't envy you. It's not going to be easy. I think there's ways to get around destroying something to get everything else we need. Because I agree, we need this stuff, and I support the schools and the board. So, thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Palmer, Yale, Woodland Ave. I just want to sort of reiterate what some folks have already said. I'm actually for the proposal as presented currently on the website. I've been to meetings the last couple months, and at every meeting there seems to be the athletic director, the woman who was in charge of special ed spoke tonight, the woman in charge of the technology, the robotics class comes up, and it just seems that we've got the administration, great administration, terrific teachers, great board. Obviously the students are working real hard and doing real well. Let's give them the facilities that they need going forward. I would love to keep the pool. My kids have spent time in the pool, but if this referendum, once it finally, whatever shape it takes, it's going to be a really heavy lift for this town. Everybody knows taxes are high. This is going to add to it. So getting this passed in any form, with or without the pool, is going to be difficult. Anything that adds money to this proposal is going to decrease the number of votes for this referendum. So I truly believe if you want to do the most good for the most people, you'll keep this proposal as sort of slim as possible. And unfortunately, if that means losing the pool, then so be it. And the last thing I just want to say is thanks again to the board and the administration for not kicking the can down the road anymore. Let's start to tackle this problem that's coming. Of space. We need space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Mikowski, 291 Sylvan Street. Just a couple of things. Thank you to the board, and I'm going to read this because I've been writing this as it's been going on. A lot of things have been said before, and it'll be repeated. Thank you to the board, and the decision will be challenging as there is no one solution that makes everyone satisfied. I do feel that the best solution will be the one that benefits the most students in the shortest amount of time. Kicking the proverbial can down the road is not a viable option. I have some questions for the board, and I apologize if these have been asked and answered or repeated, but I feel they're important and need some clarification. The pool is a resource, we all know that, and its value has been debated. What can be quantified can be measured in direct usage by students and town residents. How much of the public benefits from this community resource versus any alternative? Outside of YMCA jurisdiction, how many residents benefited from the utilization of the pool? What are the legal implications of bonding for additional money for a pool being operated by an outside agency? Does the Board of Ed want to be in the business of operating a pool, and at what cost? What is the difference in state relief for building within the footprint versus building a new structure as per the proposed option? There's been much discussion of the kitchen and the cafeteria being moved, as well as the metrics used for cafeteria usage. Can you clarify the benefit of the proposed new cafeteria kitchen and the confusion regarding its use, as well as the metrics used in calculating the requirements and student usage? While I think it's wonderful to be passionate about something, and the Save the Pool folks have shown that passion, I wonder, though, how many options should we review? How much time and money should be spent reviewing additional options? Can we afford to delay this referendum? We put these folks in position to represent our students' best interests, and I think we should support the referendum that this board will put forward. Thank you much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, I'm Gina Valechko. I'm the principal at Lincoln Elementary, and I'm here representing Lincoln Elementary School and what I go through sometimes during the day-to-day. I have the pre-K, and I go up to third grade. Kindergarten's over at Sylvan School, but I can tell you right now, I am maxed. Right now, services are being delivered for students that were brought back to district who are absolutely adorable. But they're getting services in the hallway. I have no space. My next change would be I have to take science out of the science and gifted and talented classroom and bring it into the classroom. We've done that once before. I can tell you, I honestly can tell you, the services are not going to be the same. I keep thinking about taking out lunch on a picnic. I can't get the same cooking or bring the same food to that picnic that I can if someone's coming to my home for dinner. So I just want to make you aware of some of the day-to-day things that are happening. I also would like to comment for Ms. Hohen. You know, we've brought back services for children, and if you were at our first and second grade concert just a few weeks ago, there were children in that program with special needs that when they were up on that stage, you would never have been able to identify them. And they had the experience, they participated in field day, art, music. Parents were coming back for concerts. They were coming back for the art show. It was wonderful to see our community and to see our third graders reach out and read to these children and work with the preschool students. I can honestly tell you, when our preschoolers, when we have a fire drill, our third grade students, boys, girls, will grab a hand of the little one and take them out. It's been wonderful for us. But I just would like to share, I need more space so we can continue to have these children stay in district and follow through and be with their peers. As someone who chaired the strategic planning committee that we looked at, Danny was on it, and I appreciate it. We did our due diligence. We really asked community members, we asked the students, we asked the teachers, we asked principals. We did tours of the buildings just to find out. And I came back to you and we presented our overall findings, what came to the top. And I think the plan that you have in place does address a lot of the issues that came up as far as how we were tight with phys ed space. That is curriculum. We have issues with science labs. We have issues in the high school. When I went around, there were kids that they couldn't get into the choir because they had to wait. Time was taken up for switching over. So I think when you look at what we presented and looking at the plan that you have in place, I think you did address a lot of our concerns. Again, we looked at, and Danny can tell you, we kept saying, we are not looking at what one group, what one student, what one community member needs. We kept thinking about the students, the schools, the community. And so, if I can answer any questions for you, going back to that strategic planning committee, we're available to you, and I just thank your consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, so what we'll do now. Oh. That was dramatic.
I wasn't trying to be last. Kevin Duggan, 469 Stuyvesant Avenue. I don't get more comfortable doing this each time I do it, but this proposal that you put forward has brought me to do this. So maybe that's a good thing. As you know, I am pro-pool, and all the reasons why I believe the pool is critical and should be needed. I am also pro-science labs. I believe they're critical. I'm in IT. I've been in IT all my life. I haven't been in the pool all my life. That's late. Only since my son joined the swim team have I really seen the need and the benefit for that. But we need science labs. We need classrooms. We also need the pool. And these are not mutually exclusive. We have the space to do it. And all we've done with the Save the Pool Committee since you asked for feedback is gone out, we've looked at the options, we've researched the data, we've gone through it, we've gone back with a lot of back and forth questions, and you've been really helpful in giving us a lot of information, and thank you for that. And thank you for what you do week after week when nobody's here. But everything that I've seen says it is possible to do all the critical things that we need. I'm not pro-kitchen. I think of all the things that can possibly be jettisoned from this plan is the kitchen. I don't see the true need for it. Maybe some people, I know there's some benefits from it, but the only benefit that I've seen is maybe we get warmer food. Is that worth losing the pool for? I don't think it is. That's my opinion. So I simply don't think it's true to say that the pool must go in order to gain the critical things that we need. The kitchen is maybe the expendable option, and that's a saving. We can cut our expenses by doing that. There is a question that just came up in the last few days, I think, on the cafeteria size. Maybe you might be able to address that later and explain to us what happened with that. Regardless of what happens with the pool and with the entire referendum, we need to improve the schools. And we clearly, somebody else mentioned that the science labs have not been improved for a long time. I don't know why it's been so long that we haven't done that. We need to do that sooner and quicker, and we got to figure out how we do that and not let it go so long again. But the other thing that came out of the survey, big piece that I saw in there, was that there's a clear need for better communication. Better communication from the board to the public, better communication from the board to not just to the parent population, but also to the community. And one thing I've discovered going around this weekend, just trying to get more people interested and aware and sign the petition, almost every house I knocked on, they didn't know about the referendum. Most people still in this town don't know. And I think that's that's a shocking indictment because people should know. And we're very involved, we're very aware, but a lot of people are not paying attention. So how do we improve that? How do we fix that gap? And if there is a committee that talks about communication, I would like to put myself forward and join it. I have some ideas on how maybe we can do things better. So keep that in mind, please. And the survey, I know there was a lot of communication beyond just the survey, but it was only 290 parents that responded. That's a tiny, tiny number. So I've made my case. You know where I stand. I really hope that you find a way to do the critical things that we need and we save this pool. There's an offer on the table from the Y that will convert that pool into a true community pool. So when we compare what it is today and what it has been for this last 20 years with a renewable annual contract that nobody wanted to put money into, the Y wouldn't do it, the board wouldn't do it, and obviously it didn't make sense. The long-term contract gives you the opportunity to do the right thing and turn that into a true community pool that all the community will benefit from. And as we go forward for the referendum and the votes, and we want to get this passed, think of how do we get everybody in the town to vote yes? And I think if the pool stays, there's a better chance of it getting passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else like to make a comment at this point? So what we'll do, again, just a note on process, we'll close the meeting now to public comment. We'll ask Mr. Hurley to give his report, which I think will be in some ways in response to some of the comments that he heard, that we all heard tonight. Thank you. Then, I'll sort of repurpose the board president's report to a time for our board members to share some of their thinking with respect to the proposals. And then we'll move on to the business of the meeting, followed by another opportunity for the public to speak. So there'll be another section that's open to the public toward the end of the meeting. So if you hear anything in this segment that you want to respond to, that would be the opportunity to do so. So again, thanks to everybody who came out tonight for the comments, and thanks to everybody who's here and continuing the discussion. So I'll ask Mr. Hurley to share with us his report.
Sure. I have the same impact in the audience as Ms. O'Donnell did. People will get up. Before I talk a little bit about some of the comments, first of all, thank you to everyone for your comments and for taking the time to be out here tonight and past nights as well. But before I address some of the concerns that were raised, or comments or questions, and I will be just talking about a few because some of the questions, they come, I've already answered or will answer through email or next meeting because they come out quickly and I have to get some information. I do want to mention a few other things. There are some other items on the agenda and some things going on. Today, the bike rodeo completed over at Lincoln School. It goes to Washington School later in the week, where the partnership with the police and the Green Team and other folks teach kids in the elementary schools how to ride bikes and bike safety. So that went on, and we thank everyone for their involvement with that. As part of our school safety, continuing work with school safety, we'll be doing some active shooter drills and training. The Rutherford Police will. At the high school and at the kindergarten center this summer. It'll be the second go round to the high school. The kindergarten center completes the first round at every school where the police have been in doing training. And I'll be attending 4 days of training offered by the state DOE and the state OEM at the last week of June. Fortunately, the training's over in Beckton, so it's not a far trip, but it's training as part of my role as school safety specialist. I also would like to mention to the board members that graduation, as I mentioned, coming up at middle school on June 20th, which is a tight fit because inside Washington School. At the high school, though, any board member would like to attend on June 21st. If you can let me know, if not tonight, within the next day or two, so that will get you a ticket. You need a ticket to get into the field. You can sit on field level with the faculty, but to get in through the gate, there are tickets required. So June 21st at Tryon Field at 6:30 start. If we get inclement weather and we go inside to Washington School, I may have to ask some limitation of attendance because it is very tight. We go from inviting 10 family members or friends of each graduate down to 2. So you can imagine the seating gets a little tight for that point. But we've had a good run of good weather, and we'll hopefully, all the rain is getting it out of the system now in May and June. It will be good for graduation. A couple of comments, and I don't know if Mr. Kelly has any that he wants to share, but speaking about the cafeteria, and I really did appreciate tonight the comments that several people made who spoke both, and I hate this, pro-pool, nobody's anti-pool, it's, I've gone through that before. I mean, in terms of my own connection with the swim team here and my own child's swimming career. She'll be happy I'm calling it a career, it kind of validates it a little more. But both sides of the pool divide spoke tonight about this is not really about the pool, it's really not about the cafeteria. It's not about that. It really isn't. We have 2 spaces on this campus, and we're addressing 6 buildings, right, that we could build without building a new structure. One's the pool and one's in here where we can reconfigure and do some things. Outside of that, there has to be new structures built. So the pool becomes a part of the plan and part of the discussion, okay? But I'm going to start off with the cafeteria because there was some conversation in the last couple of days. And that conversation is, I agreed with the conversation because there was some confusion over size, okay? Today, Mr. Kelly and I had a 2.5-hour meeting with the architects. This meeting was scheduled prior to the conversations about the confusion, but it certainly was a timely meeting to review with him. The initial plan that came out in September and the initial plan that was posted, I guess, in the early part of the year showed the potential for 400 students in the pool as a cafeteria. According to our conversation today and according to our conversation back then, that was a very beginning plan. Remember, the plan is kind of an organic thing that's going to keep developing as the process develops, right? And the real schematics of the plan, which you build from, don't get developed until there's a commitment to the plan. And that commitment isn't even this board committing to go forward with a referendum vote. It is the passing of the referendum. And at that point, before the plans go out to bid, the EPIC, the management team, the architectural firm, PSA, meet not only with themselves in terms of the engineers and the architects, but they come and they sit with Dr. Valeshko at Lincoln School and they talk about what are the needs here? How would this classroom, what would you need in it? What type of room? Is it going to be for young children where you need that bathroom or you don't need that bathroom? The real schematics of the plan gets developed as the plan goes forward. That's a product of time, money, and also the reality of how they work. Okay? So the first plan showed about 400 seats based on the size of the room and furniture allotment with rectangular tables that would fit X number of people. When the plan went through more development, we had a problem because what was posted on April the 12th was 456 in the new plan. Well, I'm going to tell you what I was told. I have no reason not to believe it, but this is what I was told. The draftsman made a calculation error, and it came out incorrectly. When Mr. Dugan emailed me about 2 weeks ago, maybe, and asked for figures for a square foot of, and it was like 9 or 10 items you asked for. I could have looked at the plans, because I had the plans, and I could have calculated square feet and all that, but I know my limitations. It's a long list, but I know it, okay? And one of the things, I'm not a mathematician, I'm certainly not an engineer or an architect. So what I did was I emailed the architect and said, could you please give me the answers to these 10 questions, rather than me looking at it and making a mistake. It took him a while to get back to me. And I thanked Mr. Dugan repeatedly for his patience and waiting for his reply, right? And I finally got the reply, and I got it back to him. And when I got the reply, there was a difference. The 456 was 365 because the draftsman didn't enter the number wrong. The architect did the calculations, he redid them, and it was 365. So here is the deal, okay? And we're going to change the website once we get the PDF plans from him. 365 is what the code would allow in that space right now. 400 is what the furniture would allow in the space right now. So the number's somewhere in that vicinity. However, the kitchen that we're talking about, the initial plans are based on a projection of 2,800 students in the district, 2,700 students in the district, 2,000 meals, but that's not going to really be a projection that when we do the schematics, I think that will survive because I think the meal numbers will drop a bit. And when the meal numbers drop a bit, you can steal back some space from the size of the kitchen, which also is based on square foot formula based on the number of meals. Okay? So the correct number by code is 365, by furniture is 400. The number we land on is going to be somewhere in that ballpark. The enrollment at the high school right now, I don't have it in front of me, it's like 770 or 760 or something. It's projected to get up nearer to 800. So 2 lunches would come at 360. We're a little short. At 400, we're there. But, you know, there's also creative ways of, as Pierpont people know, of putting people into seats. But we did have a conversation today about if the plan goes forward as is and is approved as is, to be taking a look at how to get that number up to that 400 level. Now, the kitchen, most schools have kitchens and they serve, there's federal. Someone made a comment about is the state going to tell us what to eat? Yes, they do. There are federal and state nutrition laws that we have to follow. I am charged, and Mr. Kelly's charged, with speaking to the PTAs, and some of the PTA people here know we've had some, we came to one PT council meeting where I said we're not talking about lunch anymore because we talked about what they can sell, what they can't sell as fundraisers. You know, whole wheat, fat-free cheese pizza is not a big seller among anybody. I was going to say high school kids, but not geriatric superintendents either. So yeah, it does tell us that. So there is better lunches, more palatable lunches. You know, we've been through all this, right? About the quality of the food, the ability to be a shelter for the community, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? However, one of the things I reached out to the architectural firm today is who do they use to design the kitchen? They bring in professional folks who they're professional gym designers, they're professional kitchen designers, and they have this company, Raymond and Raymond, that is one of the folks who work with architects to design kitchens and like, and talk about the benefits of having a kitchen and the benefits if there's not one and what's lost and so on and so forth. So I was able to reach out today to the president of that company, and he will come and meet, if we meet on June 11th, he will come and meet with the Strategic Planning Committee to share with the committee what the pros and cons are of developing a kitchen so that the board will have at the committee level, and before any decision is put forward for a vote on June 25th, we'll have the information about the value or lack of value, benefits or lack of benefits that a kitchen may bring. Now, that said, so the point I'm making is, we are trying, I mean, it's a ongoing process. It is what I said this last meeting, it's what Mr. Kelly and I, is our job. It is the board members' volunteer charge to put the time and effort in to get this right. I liked what someone said earlier. There's 7 different right ways of doing this. Okay, there's a way that we're going to put forward that's best in our opinion, and ultimately the community will decide. Right? This is not I don't want to say unilateral for 9 people from the board based on a recommendation that may be coming from me to them. It's not 10 or 11 people's decision. It's 10 or 11 people's decision to put something forward to the public to vote. Some of the questions that people are asking are all legitimate questions. They're all questions that we need to know the answer to. Some of them, for time, for logic, for what we know now and what we don't know now, we can't answer. But if the referendum is decided to go forward on June 25th with an October 2nd vote, there is 3 months of discussion, of presentations, of Q&As, of continuing. The process of fact-finding and presenting and dialogue doesn't end on June 25th. And really, it begins then. It really begins then. Because the board has done its part to certainly stay as above voicing opinions as they can for the last 7 or 8 months to try to gather information. I haven't been so diligent in that regard. I've been giving my opinion because my charge is different from theirs. My charge is to gather information, get research, and get the day-to-day interaction that I have with students and parents and faculty and administrators, and then make a recommendation to the board. So yeah, my hand's tipped a little more than others. Okay? But that's the process. So please don't think that any decision that gets made is a final decision. It is a final decision for what the community is going to vote on, and we'll have, I hope, a lot of healthy dialogues. Mr. Dugan made the point, and Doug made the point, and I agree 100%. Our goal is to get better communication. Now, we've had, you talk about things changing. Man, the newspapers have changed. The local paper and things like that isn't so local anymore, right? But we've had a couple of front page articles in the paper over the last 6-7 months. I've spoke with and met with Megan Grant several times. We've devoted articles in our newsletter, on our website. We've devoted a separate web page. We have a committee in place that's planning, and the board's strategic planning and some other folks planning how we are going to get communication out. One thing that will happen, assuming a referendum, and I don't want to go through all the plan, but just to be fair and answer your concern. One thing that we're going to do, we've already compiled a list of every community group that exists in this borough, every group of citizens or municipal folks who get together, for the Green Team, the Cub Scouts, the you name them, the Irish, all these different clubs. And we're going to send letters out during the summer with a schedule of community meetings and invite them to those meetings. We're going to post them on our website. We're going to get them in the paper. Our goal is to have 2 to 3 meetings a week at various times of the day, maybe morning for people who can't make a night meeting, nighttime for those who can't, at different locations in schools and other areas around the community, so that in the month of September, leading up to October, there'll be 10 to 12 community meetings. We're going to try to keep the presentations the same so that, now things may come up that we make adjustments. We're going to try to make it the same, but we're going to record at least one of those so that if a person can't make it, they're on the site. So, we now put things out on Twitter, we put things out on Facebook, we put things on our website, we do videos. We're doing what we can to get people to know what's going on. And I welcome, whether you're on a committee or not, I welcome any idea that you have. If it works, great. If we don't think it works, we say thank you. But I welcome it. So don't wait for an invitation to a committee. Anybody have an idea of how we get word out to you? If not right now, going forward in the summer and the fall, we would like that. And I would welcome, Dr. Valechko is the chair of the committee, but I would welcome adding people to our committee once the decision gets made. We're not trying to keep anybody out, and we're not trying, the decision might get made by the board that doesn't reflect one side or the other's view, but if you want to still be a part of the process, I would welcome that. And I'm sure Dr. Valechko would welcome it as well. So those are some of the responses that, I could give you. Because the point, and I did take some notes, and I don't want to, I know the board wants to speak, but as I said, I will get back to some other questions. It came up a couple of times. I saw about the Pierpont schools. It was asked last week what would happen at Pierpont. Back in September, when we were trying to find our way, and we really were, the demographic report that all the board members have seen, all the board members looked at, was done on December the 14th. okay? And that was done because before you could submit plans to the state, you have to get a more recent demographic report. When I held the first meeting to inform the public and the school community on September, I think it was 25th or 28th, I don't remember the exact date, that was based on old demographic information, right? And we were talking about whether there could be a one-story addition or a two-story addition at Pierpont. And if we had a one-story addition, it might serve the needs, but a two-story might serve us better down the road. And at that point, I explained to the people that were in attendance, you can't get something approved by the state if there isn't a identified need, okay? So I said one thing we could identify as a need would be like an autistic center, right? Then the demographic report came out that showed enrollment was increasing to a larger number than we anticipated. We also got the reality of the school year. Remember, the school year was like 2 weeks into the year, right? When I had that first meeting, where classes are 27 to start, and now, two families move in, now they're 29. So we realized that we needed those classrooms for students that would be in Pierpont. And that is what we submitted to the state. There's no autistic center. You heard Ms. Hohen speak tonight about a concern that we have, and it is a concern that when the students leave Lincoln School or Washington School, the students in the MD program and the autistic program, right now there isn't a classroom for them at Pierpont. Now, she knows, and I know, that if the referendum gets passed, there may not be a classroom there in 2 years. And we may have to do something like hold a student at Lincoln or put a student in Union. But as a parent of a child, if you're told this is a one-year deal while we're building the classroom, and the next year he's back in the right age-appropriate program, that's better than saying we're shuffling him off somewhere for 3 years where he's with kids too old or too young. So at Pierpont, we are talking about 11 new classrooms. There are currently 3 classrooms in the portable building. If we eliminated the portable buildings, which was part of the first plan, but this is why it's not part of this plan. If you bring those 3 classrooms back, right, now your 11 new classrooms become 8, right? Because 3 that are out there, it's grade 4 and it's G&T, right? So they come back in. So now you're down from 11 to 8. If you add 6 classes, 2 at every grade level. Now, right now you have 200 plus kids divided by 8, so you're at 27, 25, 26, 27, 28. The numbers are staying there. They're going up. What wasn't mentioned, what was mentioned, the numbers are even going to be higher in Pierpont, right? So if you divide 215 by 8 or 220 by 8, you have large numbers, 30, 20, 28, 20. If I have 10 sections in every level, I'm between 20 and 22, right? 23. Those are magical. In a year that enrollment's not so high, 19, right? So those are good numbers. So that's 6 now. Now I go from 11 minus 3 to 8, 6 minus 8, I'm down to 2. I'm going to have at least 1 or 2 special ed classes coming up. There's the other 2. Right now we don't have a class for Spanish. She moves around to whatever class is open. Right now we don't have a class for OT or PT. Right now we don't have a class for any new electives to come. So if I keep the portables as a safety valve, and for classes that will fit not fit physically fit, but fit in terms of the flow of the day, once those classes are gone, we don't get them back. I was principal here in the last renovation. And despite what anybody says about numbers, when I became principal in 2001, we had about 600 students, 610 students. And when I left to go up to Park Avenue on 2000, wow, it felt like it was a lifetime ago, 2014, we had about 780 students. I like to think because I was such a dynamic principal. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, the last referendum increased the size of this cafeteria. It used to be closed off right around here. And this was used to be the old kitchen that got taken down in 1975. It increased the band room. It increased the choir room. It increased those common areas. It did not add any classrooms. In fact, we lost a few classrooms, and we were struggling for classrooms. I don't want to make that mistake again where we get rid of classrooms. I'd rather have 1 extra classroom for 1 year somewhere, and when that number comes up, keep in mind, there's no place to build the kindergarten center. So if you have a year where we have to have a 9th kindergarten section, they're going to have to go to Lincoln. So if we don't have an extra classroom, Washington, there's no room to build at Washington. If you move to the Washington side, there's 28 students there. Would you rather hear that you're going to go to Lincoln, or you're not going to go to a school that's age appropriate? So that answers a few of the questions. And the one last question that was asked about whether or not there's legal implications if we could fund for a 15 or 20 year period a program is not with the Board of Ed. I'm not so sure we can. And our bond counsel is strongly advising against it. But that's something that we'll have to, if the board wants to go that way, we'll have to dig into. So there's a lot of dialogue yet to be had. But I hope I clarified at least some of the things that came up. And once again, I've exceeded my 3 minutes. By about
Set the timer
20
next
times.
time.
But everybody's used to this by now.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to ask the board who would like to begin sharing thoughts with respect to where we are with the facilities plan. Now, again, I'm not asking, hang on just a second, Ms. Ahmed, I'm not asking that folks say that they are for or against, just asking that you share some perspective based on what you've heard and what you've learned through the process. Ms. Ahmed?
I'd just like to address the audience. Something goes on every year. Usually no one's here to see it. But in reorganization meetings, the Board of Ed has to say, stand up and we swear to a certain code mandated by the New Jersey State Department of Support, New Jersey State Board. But there's 3 here that I want the audience to hear. The first one, I will make decisions, these are affirmative. I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. Other alternatives have been given for the swim team, like Lyndhurst has volunteered to take them. And if we put the pool, we're mixing up with the 11 classrooms, so I really want everyone to take that into consideration. What we have to mull over in our brain how we're going to do this. Also, another code is I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. I feel that there's a lot of complaints going on, but Mr. Hurley keeps us well informed during and after meetings, committee meetings, give us information in the planning between meetings, and if we have questions in our agenda, he's only a phone call away. And as far as the email goes, only Donald Trump, Trump's.
Well, I hope not the same content.
No, emails I do.
Oh, okay.
The third one, I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Office, and will act on the complaints of public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution. I feel we have gone over and over solutions, and soon will be time to vote. One other thing, I've been on so many resolutions, so many referendums already. The last one passed, and the one before that failed, and it failed because we wanted, first of all, the committee that was formed wanted to get some place for extra buildings or whatever, and it was 40 people, and it took so long for us all to get together. Finally, I wasn't on that, by the way, but when they did get together, I'm sorry, I was on this one I'm talking about. When we did get together for our final decision, we decided we were going to buy the property for Felicia, that Felician's on it. They went that morning to go to the real estate and say this is what we want to do. And Felician had just gone that morning and bought the place. So we could have had that whole campus, and we wouldn't have had this problem as far as room goes. So we have to work in a diligent, as quick as we can way. We've heard everyone's opinions, and sooner or later we're going to have to come with a decision. So I hope everyone here and out in TV land will vote yes for whatever referendum comes up. And I, thank you all for giving your opinions.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmed.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, who are you pointing to?
Dennis raised his hand as I did.
Okay, Mr. Mazzone.
I'd first like to start by thanking my fellow board members for the time and effort that each and every one of you, including the superintendent and the board secretary, have put into putting the referendum forward. This has not been a quick process. It's, by my accounts, at least a 3-year effort, work in progress. I'd also like to thank the members of the community who've stayed engaged, who stayed involved. I know along with many of you, I've had conversations, as Mrs. Labrera had noted, at soccer games, at Dunkin' Donuts, at many other locations, none clandestine, however, around town, where we've had an opportunity to talk the merits and the pros and cons. My opinion is that there is a clear need to improve the facilities in our community at all 6 schools. I think that our schools are crowded, and I think the conditions will continue to become more overcrowded if they are not improved. I think that we have serious infrastructure issues to consider in our schools. There are a need for STEM labs. There are needs for increased sizes in our gyms, but also handicap accessibility, increased efficiency. This is not about a pool versus a cafeteria, from my opinion. And I think that in order to do our children our best service, I think it's compulsory upon all of us to put forward the best referendum we possibly can to support that. I do ultimately believe, and I think Mr. Hurley stated it earlier, is that this ultimately will come to you as voters out in the audience and throughout our community. The Board of Ed are 9 members who Mr. McLean routinely reminds us of, that are asked to ensure that the schools are run well and not to run the schools. So when I come to these meetings, I do listen to our superintendent along with our other school administrators. Much like as a board member, I've listened to the members of the community who wish to bend my ear on this and other issues. I will say that I think that the superintendent should be commended for the job that he has done along with the board in being transparent, putting information out in the public forum, on the website, the emails, the superintendent roundtables, and certainly affording members of our community ample opportunities to speak and state their opinions here. I do believe that some of the most compelling conversations and discussions have been had by the superintendent, the administrators, our athletic director, and will certainly strongly influence my decision. I would love to keep the pool as part of this program. I believe that it will come down to a balancing of equities for me as to what is needed, what we'd like to have, and to be honest, I'd love to add more to this referendum, but I don't think it's fiscally responsible to do so. And I'd like to make sure whatever we do put forward is something that the taxpayers of Rutherford can endorse and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Racine.
Give some thoughts in about my thought process and how I view what's going on. So first, the baby job. If our job, as I see it, we talked about here, it boils down to 2 general points. 1, look out for the educational welfare of the children. Okay? 2 is to make sure we have financial stability to the taxpayer. Okay? So with the referendum or any plan going forward, it's not. So I don't view this as what do I want. Right? It's not what I want, what I prefer, because I'm the fiduciary for the school district, and that's not my responsibility. It's first is what satisfies our general job, right? The welfare of the children is not so responsible to the taxpayers. Second, since we don't decide if the plan passes or not, what is built or not, the community does. It's which plan can gather the most community support. So those are the two elements that I'm weighing. Right? Like I said, it's not the plan that I personally want. It's a plan that I think is best for the school district, and plan which is most likely to pass. Right? 2, about our process. Like we are listening. We get your emails. We hear you. it's not a dialogue for us. We are, like Mr. Hurley said, right? We are an impartial body. We're just listening. And right, some of you, we've talked about this, and we hear everything you're saying, and we do process it, we research it, we discuss it, right? And right? So we are listening to you. Second, right, my job here is to collect data, weigh some options, which is very analytical, but also the hard part here is there's an emotional balance. So it's analytical, emotional balance between what's the best for the schools and what's reflected in the past. Now, okay, so that being said, there's just comments about this whole process for the community, right? It's been said here a few times. It kind of saddens me when I see people not being civil. That's been happening. This is a very teachable moment, as we say, for our town, for our children, right? Saying that we can look at facts, look at data, come to different conclusions. That doesn't mean somebody is incompetent, there's backroom deals, there's cheating. You come to different conclusions. And that's life, and that happens, right? There's no conspiracies. I don't believe there are people being paid by third parties. Right? I don't believe that right? There are third parties behind us, and we have a plan all along, and we have a secret plan. You shouldn't believe that, because we just come to different conclusions. And we teach our children that we can disagree and respect each other, and it's fun, right? So with that, what I said to somebody at the park, we spend a lot of time in the community. I spent from 8 o'clock Saturday morning to about 6 o'clock that Sunday afternoon doing community events, Cub Scouts, birthday parties, animal derby stuff, pancakes, great pancakes, by the way. Right? So people do talk to us, but instead of yelling at each other, talk to us. We're in the community. We're there. We're more than willing to talk, as you see now, I'm babbling on and on. So, right? And so we are a community of friends. And let's try and keep it that way.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I also would like to echo the sentiments from our board members about the administration and all the effort they put in, and also thank the public for all their comments. It's a lot for us to digest, but we appreciate all the efforts that you've made. When we first received the list of recommended projects for our school system, I thought there might be ones that we could cut. The more I studied the list, the more I felt confident that the proposed plan is addressing our critical needs. The need for additional classroom space throughout our school district is apparent, and I think most of our residents understand this. And in fact, there has not been much negative comment regarding plans for our other buildings, except for the high school, specifically repurposing the existing structure which currently houses the pool. As board members, we are obligated to keep the educational needs of our students first and foremost. The proposal, as presently envisioned, has been approved by both the Rutherford Planning Board and the State Department of Education. These approvals certainly indicate we are meeting the needs of our students in a fiscally responsible way. Any alternative or changes to the current proposal, especially ones that would increase costs to our taxpayers without additional educational benefit, would be difficult for me to entertain. It's also hard for me to believe that the State Department of Education would approve any plan which would keep the pool and therefore take space from the athletic field, eliminate important access for police, fire, and other emergency vehicles to the school, and substantially increase our costs to our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alati, excuse me.
Thank you. So I have been on the board for about 6 or 7 months, but it feels like longer. I would say probably about a year or two ago, I was sitting where you were sitting in the audience, listening to board meetings and hearing the comments that were made, but not necessarily knowing internally, what are all the processes that go on. And I've really been impressed with a number of things that I wanted to highlight. There's a deep level of analysis that really goes on, a lot of which goes on through board committees that you don't necessarily see at meetings. There's an amazing amount of transparency that I've observed among the board about everything from finances and facilities to programming, policy, and strategic planning, and really a passion for making the district the best it could be. I'd like to say I'm very appreciative of the many viewpoints presented, the work that's been done to study the referendum. Some of you have been to a number of these meetings. I've had those soccer conversations, baseball conversations. I haven't hit Dunkin' Donuts yet, but I'm sure it's on the way. As some of you may know, I'm a member of the Rutherford Education Foundation. Between 2013 and 2016, I was the organization's president. During that time period, I had met with each school principal and the superintendent at the time, Dr. Jones. When I spoke to Dr. Jones at the time, our meeting was about understanding where her focus was regarding possible REF grant funding. She had brought up to my attention then, it was probably around 2014, her concern about overcrowding, and had begun to develop a plan for reorganizing the schools, Pierpont and Union. Mr. Hurley later addressed the concerns of growth with the board before my service began, way before, through the changes with the reorganization of Union and Pierpont. As a school director myself professionally, who runs 2 campuses, 4 buildings, who works with program, finance, facilities, infrastructure, legal, policy, I'm amazed at how many angles were thought of during that reorganization process. Program restructuring, enhancements, the timeline of making the change, to the ways this was being communicated, and Mr. Hurley's commitment at the time to addressing the community's concerns. I remember a lot of conversations about busing and car drop-off. And this board, Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly, really inspired me back then, and it's what drove me toward board service, because I really believe in work integrity, process, organizational planning, and clear vision. And I'm really proud to be on this board because I've really seen that amongst all these board members. Obviously, we're faced with a huge challenge, and I see it as a good problem because we're a thriving town. There's growth of the student population, and the Rutherford schools continue to strive for improvement and excellence. We know there are major repairs and various programs that need to be modernized and brought up to 21st century standards, and I've heard some of you say it tonight in the audience. It's really important that the Rutherford schools can be competitive, can retain as many students as possible, and I think that's a key point, and so that parents both in and out of Rutherford can see our district as a model. Since I've joined the board, we've created and analyzed plans for how to address the needs of our schools, which we recently learned New Jersey State agrees with, as 100% of the plans proposed have been found to be educationally adequate. I think that's really significant. We've created a communications plan so that everyone in the town has access and exposure to understanding the referendum and toward asking informed questions. I think the website is the beginning of that. Mr. Hurley alluded to a communication plan. I've been a part of the conversation, and there's a lot that's still going to be happening in terms of conversations. We've been listening to the residents of Rutherford who voice concerns, questions, comments by email at meetings. And so we're getting close to game time toward the end of June. And I think that since hearing the community's questions, I know the architect, the planning team have been responsive to Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, and the board's numerous comments. They've reviewed various alternative plans. They've looked at cost savings across many angles. We've been considering the pool, the cafeteria, kitchen considerations, new rooms added, is existing versus new structures related to viability, reviewed tax relief, the state's disposition, decision-making around educational adequacy, infringement on field areas, stage areas. I know I've joined some of the board members here where we've actually toured various buildings, and I appreciate the opportunity firsthand to see some of the challenges that the Rutherford schools actually face, above and beyond just the photos, actually going to the schools and seeing that. I'm pretty sure I join my colleagues here in saying that we're human, and our hearts and minds are all in toward figuring out what's best for our schools. The Board of Education lives and breathes within the community and really is part of the community. I really appreciate what Shelley said, because I had to watch all of those ethical videos about our responsibility as board members, so I'm pretty well versed, but I was going to say that is really our charge, is we have to look through the lens of not just what we may personally think, but what our fiduciary and strategic responsibility is. Finally, I just wanted to say that I think a lot of this comes down to a trust that the residents of Rutherford have in this board and Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hurley in being shepherds of the process and doing the type of due diligence that's required to leave no stone unturned. I think transparency and mutual understanding of process is paramount. Of course, there's going to be hiccups, which is why ongoing communication and inquiry are really paramount. I think to date, this referendum has been vetted, challenged, probed, questioned, and analyzed. I look forward to the continuing conversations. I do think to date, this board, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hurley, have been fiscally, educationally, and organizationally scrutinizing all the feedback. At this time, the plan that is currently there for proposal is one that does seem like a strong plan. That said, I look forward to the continued work and input so we could arrive at the most effective decision that fulfills our mandate and obligation to the students and to the taxpayers. Sorry, that was really long-winded. I apologize.
You did it fast, though. It was good. Thank you. Sure. Mr. Hill.
Okay. What do you say?
Thorough.
I do see the bottom line reason for supporting a referendum plan is simply providing the needed tools, resources, and space which are long overdue to improve student achievement even further, and expand the educational programs to allow our students to develop the appropriate life and work skills for their futures. And I believe our current and future students deserve this change. The plan that will be put forth by the facilities experts lead me to believe that the end result will be improved student achievement and opportunities for the Rutherford students to learn relevant skills to help them move onto higher learning and/or extraordinary careers and lives. And the relevant skills, I believe, is the important part here, which we want to expand on. And that was as explained by our faculty members, and some of the community members are well aware of it too. And I would like to thank the community, the board, and the administration and faculty for their participation, because this is such an important building block for our community. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowland.
No one who loves swimming should or will stop swimming because there's a local. I swam for my high school team, and I had to travel. Sometimes we did morning practices and afternoon practices, so I had to go before school to St. Peter's College, Jersey City. So I went to Marist and Bayonne, and then went to Bayonne High School in the afternoon to swim. I loved it. It was worth it to me. So those who talk about safety, your child, is someone that you want to learn to swim, so they're safe in the water. If it's not a local swimming pool, there's still plenty of places to learn how to swim. I can't let that affect my decision that it's not local or it becomes a little less convenient. In other due diligence, I visited the Union City High School. It's an amazing facility. It costs $180 million. They have a field on top of their multi-story building. They didn't have to pay for it. The state paid for it. It didn't come down to what we have to do. So I try to think outside the box. I try to find a solution that would let us, have our cake and eat it too. But there doesn't seem to be one. So we're at $53 million right now, which is still up in the air. What's going to eventually cost? Hopefully lower. It seems that we can't outweigh anything that the children need for academic and especially sciences, and compare it to something extra like swimming. I love swimming. I love athletics, and I'd love an indoor track. I'd love one of those parachuting things too, but that's not in the budget either. I went to a Jersey City school system from K through 8, and I was in a classroom that had 32 kids in it. I was in a classroom that had 7 kids in it. Over the years, they had problems with figuring out how to allocate their classrooms. I learned a lot more in the 20 and under classrooms than I did in anything that was approaching 30. For a teacher to be expected to handle 26, 27, 28, getting closer to 30 kids, it's a lot to ask. It impacts every child in that classroom that they're going to have more time divided. So, for that reason, among many others, I hope everyone supports the referendum as a big picture and not a single issue. The last thing I wanted to say was that if an amazing solution comes that saves us money and saves the pool, I'm all for it. But I've heard nothing concrete. We've had we could save a couple $1 million and still have it all. Someone has to show me that idea in a real way. It can't just be a creative solution in their head. We need facts, we need figures, we need an architect and construction people that can make that happen. Right now we have a plan that isn't perfect, but it's pretty good, and it's going to solve a lot of our problems. And unless something comes along that's better than that, that's what I would choose to go with. That's all.
Thank you. I'll share my thoughts as well. So I would want to echo everybody's comments here with respect to the process and with respect to everybody's engagement. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's been a respectful, balanced, and thoughtful discussion and conversation over the last months and year plus. So really thankful for everyone for being involved in such a productive way. I think overall the proposals that have been put together do a good job of addressing a lot of the most pressing needs in the district. Needs around crowding, around modernizing science and technology facilities, around just adding additional classrooms and making room for more programmatic growth. Ultimately, and I know this has been said multiple times, our role as board members is to facilitate programmatic growth and enhancement of educational opportunities for the students of the district, and to do it in a cost-effective way. And that is our charge. And I think overall, the concern that I have with respect to the proposals that are on the table is the price tag. It's an expensive set of proposals, and it's our job as board members to make sure that those costs are all fully vetted and required to deliver that educational value, meaning that is the best way to achieve that educational value, which really brings me to the pool. So similar to Mr. Rowland, I'm a swimmer. I grew up swimming. It was definitely, still is my sport of choice. I still swim quite a bit as an adult, participate in all sorts of organized events. I love swimming, and I know that a lot of the discussion that we've had to date has been around the merits of swimming and the merits of having a swim program. And I'm a huge proponent for the sport. But the lens, to steal Mr. Rowland's term, the lens that I'm looking through here is that of a board member. Again, the educational opportunities and the programmatic growth in a cost-effective way. And while I think there's been a lot of very healthy discussion around different options and details of the plans and different designs, and I think all the back and forth has just put us in a better position in terms of really understanding what's on the table. Ultimately, I think it boils down to the need for science labs and classrooms in the high school. This specific issue of the pool. I don't think it's about a cafeteria. I don't think it's about a kitchen. I think it's about the science labs and the classrooms. And I don't want to simplify it because it's not a simple issue, and I don't mean to minimize the challenge that we have in front of us, but as I see it, it really boils down to, if we need to build more classrooms, modernize our science labs, we can't do it in the existing space that we have because the space is too constrained. We need to either renovate an existing space or build an existing space. Those are the two options that we have. Whether we do the kitchen with the cafeteria, whether the cafeteria moves into the pool, whether the cafeteria stays here, ultimately, I see the renovation of the pool space as being critical path to any one of those options if we want to renovate an existing space that's going to yield science labs, and it's going to yield more classrooms. If we build a space, which I see as the only alternative, and I think we could find a way to build a space outside of the school. If we build a space, it will be more expensive. And that expense we will be incurring as a district in order to preserve the pool. Now, I'm not making a statement about the benefit to the community of the pool, but I am making a statement about our role as board members to pass along a tax impact to the residents of Rutherford for something that's not a primary educational facility. The vast majority of kids in the school district don't use the pool. So as a board member, I don't feel like I can pass on the expense of preserving the pool through this format, the format of passing a referendum for the schools. I don't think it's the appropriate venue to do that. And so for that reason, at this point, none of us have made a final decision about the package. I think there's certainly questions and details that need to be reviewed with respect to the kitchen and the cafeteria. But again, I think that's separate and apart from the main issue on the table, which is the classrooms and the science labs and how we get them. I see those two options. We renovate our existing space, or we do something that involves adding space, which essentially adds cost that gets passed along. So again, I want to thank everybody in terms of the participation to date, and I know that over the next few weeks we'll be continuing to look at a lot of the open details, a lot of the issues. If there's any rock that's not turned over, we'll continue to turn it over. The decision has certainly not been made as a board here, but we wanted to take this opportunity to give you a read as to how we see the issues at hand. Certainly keep the feedback coming. The Strategic Planning Committee will be meeting. I don't know that we have a date. I think we're talking about June 11th.
11th, if that works. Does that work? We can decide that.
To continue that, to continue the conversation, and we'll be bringing a proposal forward, if not next meeting, then the following meeting, to essentially move as a board for community vote. And that, as everyone has said here, will essentially, that will be the test of what the community really wants to support. I do have a letter here from Kevin McLean, who wasn't able to join us, but he did ask me to read it in his stead. June 4th, 2008, Paris, France. I think he was just showing off. Hello, fellow Rutherford Board of Education members. I'm sorry to be missing tonight's meeting due to overseas business travel. At tonight's meeting, I believe members may be making comments regarding their thoughts regarding the information we've received and are considering in order to make an informed decision regarding a potential public referendum. My first thought is one of gratitude to you for the many hours you've invested in meetings, committee work, and personal research regarding the issues in front of us. My second thought is another one of gratitude, this one toward our professionals, our superintendent, business administrator, architect, project management firm, for their work and flexibility in investigating the various options the board has requested information on. Despite some possible erroneous information which has been corrected as soon as it was flagged or verified, I have full faith in the job that they are doing on behalf of the students, families, and taxpayers of our school district. There's never a doubt in my mind that our students' well-being is at the center of every suggestion and proposal they make to us. I full-heartedly disagree with any individual or group who says or insinuates otherwise. And thoughts of gratitude extend to our staff, community, strategic planning committee, and even those who are threatening to work against the school improvement proposal if it involves repurposing the district's pool building. I am, like all of you, I am sure, taking the facts associated with all the stated views into consideration, even when they seem to impugn the integrity of our process and board. Regarding the totality of the plan we have in front of us, each and every element brings benefit to our students and school district. My primary concern is the sheer magnitude of the cost, but I know that the needs that are addressed are equally high in importance. I cannot say that I agree with the suggestion that we should not be concerned about increasing the burden on Rutherford taxpayers even further. During the next several weeks, the Strategic Planning Committee will again be reviewing updated information and options in order to make a final proposal to the board at large to consider. In my years on the board, I cannot remember another issue which has taken so much time and attention on the district and board. It is in line with the magnitude of the previously mentioned district needs and the Rutherford residents' commitment that will be needed to answer those needs. It is precisely because of all of these hours, work, and input from all individuals and groups that I'm confident we will arrive at the most effective decision possible to fulfill our mandate and obligation to the students, current and future, and taxpayers who support the Rutherford School District with their school taxes. I look forward to being with you again in our next meeting. Sincerely, Kevin McLean, President, Rutherford Board of Education. Does anybody have anything to add? Okay. All right, so moving on to the normal business of our meeting, 9:53. This will be, okay, so next up, Ms. Ahmed, can you take us through the personnel actions? quickly.
One, following, let me see. 24 motions, so I would like to move. For personnel, one is a resignation as assistant principal to approve elementary teacher.
Mr. Betts telling me he's not picking up on the mic. Maybe it's a little closer, please.
I think you could just.
Now you got it.
Numbers, too. We could just put them in.
Can you hear me? Okay.
25.
So I could just like to move 1 through 24, is that what you want me to do? 25. And also there's an adjustment on number 8, Mrs. Barry, the date, effective date will be July 1st.
Can I make two comments in the spirit of time? I do want to mention publicly that we wish Mr. Cunningham well as he's resigning his position as the assistant principal of the high school to move on to become principal at another district, Hawthorne, and we congratulate him and wish him well. And if the board approves the appointment, I strongly endorse and support, and I'm happy for Mr. DeBarry to become the new assistant principal of the high school.
I'll let you follow it. The board's permission from 1 to 25.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Okay.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to curriculum and instruction, Mrs. Jones.
There are 6 resolutions for tonight. Number 1, to accept grant funds from the Rutherford Education Foundation in the amount of $55,243.11. $52,094 is from the REF, and $3,149.11 from the Casadante family. Resolution 2, home instruction for 2 students. Resolution 3, affirmation of the superintendent's decision of an HIV investigation. 4, approval of district placements. 5, approval of field trips. And 6, approval of emergency bus evacuation drills for the school year.
Just a quick comment thanking the REF and thanking the Casadante family for continued support. You saw evidence of it tonight with the Chromebooks and the other programs that have been supported over the years. So we appreciate that. And
Thank you.
the president's in the back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Ms. Cole.
Thank you. Okay,
So
have you moved those?
Moves following 6 resolutions.
Okay, second?
Second.
A tie.
Tie.
Any discussion? Okay.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the finance section. Dr. Racine, can you move it?
Finance. There are 5 items for finance. The first one is approval of bills. Number 2 is the April 2018 Secretary Treasury Report. Number 3 is budget transfers, as listed. Number 4 is the coordinated transportation services. And number 5, to reappoint the architect of record as PSA.
With regard to number 5, the appointment of the architect of record, this is an annual appointment that we make. We are required to have an architect of record, somebody who is the board hires to watch out for their best interests. The process for professional service in terms of identifying which firms we want to use are fairly simple. We look at their experience with other districts. Educational architecture is different than other kinds of architecture. We look at experience within the district as well, because there's building a body of knowledge there that is important to to our work as we move forward in improving the facilities. We do look at costs as well. My county association, which is the Bergen County Association of School Business Officials, polls its members, about 75 members every year, to put together a list of what everybody else is paying their architects on an hourly basis for a partner and a senior architect and that sort of thing. The costs from PSA are competitive, to put it nicely. They are actually a bit lower. And with that, we do get Mr. Chapin, who has been, as I've said before, has been the district's best friend for almost 20 years now. So we go through that process. I think it's probably important to note also that when we get into certain projects, such as the two that are on the addendum that you'll be looking at in a couple minutes, we get into needing Department of Ed approval. And in doing so, the architect fees for those specific projects are spelled out and are very clear, and they cannot be exceeded. So there are certain controls in place, not necessarily for the architect of record services, but for the special projects that come up. And that goes for the referendum as well. There are costs embedded there that he cannot exceed, period. So I think we did the necessary due diligence on this. And certainly I can highly recommend Paret Samjian as the district's architect of record going forward for next year. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to move items 1 through 5.
Mr. Mazzone, second. Any discussion?
Okay, Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay. Policy, there is no report. Buildings and grounds, Mr.
Wait,
Mazzone.
can I just mention something?
Sure, of course.
We did have a committee meeting, and it was held on June 4th, 2018. And we did review 1 new and 12 revised policies and regulations, which will be presented the next meeting for the first reading, and then July 2nd reading.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mazzone?
Certainly. So I have 3 items to put forward tonight. The first is the request for waiver of fees for project graduation, to use 1 Rutherford Board of Education bus to provide round-trip transportation for project graduation beginning on June 21st, 2018, returning June 22nd, 2018 at no charge. The next 2, the first pertains to boiler replacement. The Board of Education to approve 2018-2019 budget capital project to replace 2 boilers at the Rutherford High School. This would be a proposal to engage the architect of record to design the boiler replacement and plan to oversee the work in the project at a cost not to exceed $20,800. The third and final item to put forward, again, drawing on the 2018-2019 budget, capital project to replace the rooftop unit intended to provide both heating and air conditioning in the 230 gym here at the high school. Again, to engage the architect of record to design the rooftop unit for replacement project, plan, oversee the work at a cost not to exceed $32,340.
May I say something?
Of course.
These 2 projects here, as indicated, they were both included in the budget for 2018-2019. These are late to the party here because we're still having discussions on the scope of these projects. But that is like it says, both of them not to exceed that number. And I'm confident that we can, come in a little better, and we're working toward that. So, but we do need to get these things moving in order to get, particularly the boilers, which have to be in place and functional by the end of September.
Just one quick item to add to that, one quick item about the other item on the agenda, which is a very positive one. The field test was Friday. That's why it's late coming here too, where the architect meets engineers here and they walk the 2 the buildings, look at where everything is to try to get to the best possible way to go forward with this. But we do have to get moving so that we get it in ready for heating season. And the project graduation, the board had approved 2 buses, and now the third, and that's a good sign because that means more of the graduates are participating in the event organized by parents for a safe and final celebration as a class. So that's good news that the numbers have required a 3rd bus.
Awesome. Okay, so did you move those?
I will move those 3.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Okay. Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Alati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, any old business to discuss?
Quick.
No, you first.
Go ahead, Mr. Rowan.
Quick idea for seating cafeterias in Pierpont and the high school to speak to the architect about mezzanine seating into our library for adding a floor for those high ceilings.
Mhm.
We could do something like that to make sure that we hit at least half the population of those 2 schools.
Okay, so Greg volunteered to receive questions. If any outstanding questions from the board members, you want to shoot those over to Greg in the next day or so. We'll make sure that we get the right people to answer some of those questions for the next strategic planning facilities meeting, and then have a feedback loop to folks in advance of next meeting. Okay, thanks for the suggestion.
I'd just like to comment that the art shows in all of our schools were just wonderful. I was able to get around to it all. I got to see Junie B. Jones. It was such a wonderful production for the 6th graders. I was just moved by them. They were just absolutely fabulous. And the senior breakfast that we've talked about, the $115,000 is such a community effort of the people supporting our students. And one legislative event that I want to tell you is on Wednesday, May 23rd, the Assembly, State, and Local Government unanimously approved a measure intended to rein in the cost of paying public employees for unused sick days. Back in 2010, that was brought up by Governor Christie, and at that point, we established the fact that the upper administration couldn't use any more than 15,000, no matter how many sick days they had. That would be the top cost, and that's what's being recommended now.
We were ahead of the curve on that.
We were. Well, our former superintendent made it, you know.
Right.
in
So
contract.
I've been capped at 15,000. I have, by the way, just so you know, I have 410 accumulated sick days.
Right,
So it's
You
about
would cost us a lot,
$3
that
a
was
day or
fair.
whatever it is, right?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Jones. Okay, so I'd like to again open the meeting up to the public. Would anyone like to speak? You're going to have to state your name. I don't think we know who you are.
Kevin Duggan, 469 Stuyvesant. I'll be short this time. Regardless of how the referendum goes forward, one thing I hope, I appreciate the information that you provided. I hope you think it's been a civil process from everything I've presented. And as we go forward, if you do make a decision that says you're going to go forward with the current proposal, I think you know I'm not going to be in favor of that. And I don't think anything is going to change my mind at this stage, because I do believe that there are options on the table, some that have not been costed out yet, that could be, that I know are viable. Whether they cost more, how much more they cost, that's the question. I don't believe they would cost significantly more, and I believe the community would support it. Now, you have to make a decision that you believe is in the best interest of the schools. But you have been approving the pool and paying for the pool for the last 20 years, 40 years in fact. So it's not, there's no precedent that says we cannot keep the pool. It is a cost issue, and I understand it's all the things we talked about. So no matter how it goes, I hope, regardless of whether people vote yes or vote no, this is not just a single issue. For me, it's not a single issue. As much as I want to say I want to keep the pool, there are all of the other aspects that I want to keep as well, and I firmly believe we can do that. We may disagree on the end goal, and I hope, regardless of how we vote, we will remain friends and have a civil society here, and that nothing changes any of that in the town, and I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so we need an executive session. We're going to discuss 2 student issues, brief negotiations update, and a personnel issue. Okay, I think we're going to need about 20 minutes. No action will be taken. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Dr. Racine? Okay. Thanks. Thank you.